On the door any minute, or dogs barking, so it's going to be a bit of fun either way. But if something happens, I hope everyone's okay with that. So
absolutely. So let's jump right in. So first of all, again, as I mentioned in the email, really give yourself this gift of totally being present. This is about love and your future. We're not talking about, buying a new water filter. This is about love and your life. So we would encourage you to be totally present, to turn off your phone, to turn off Facebook. It's so important for you to give yourself this gift to really get the value that you really can get out of tonight. So you are in the right place if you are struggling to meet the right kind of man for you and you wonder if he even exists. You are fed up with people saying, why on earth is an amazing woman like you still single or not in a relationship? You feel like love probably will never happen for you. You might be at a stage where you feel like it's all too hard. You're almost ready to give up. You've had so many painful experiences in love, potentially, that you feel like being single is just easier and safer. You really just don't want to get hurt again. You're generally happy with where you're at in most other areas in life, but when it comes to love, you feel less empowered, which you don't like, because you value feeling empowered in all areas, of course. And you believe that to love someone and to be loved in return is absolutely priceless. And the last point, you would love to be in a loving, passionate, and committed relationship sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And the thing that I noticed, and the reason why I was so passionate about getting together with you to do this workshop tonight, Camille, is because there is so many beautiful women that we know, and we know that they deserve and should be in a really amazing, conscious, loving, deeply connected relationship. But there's just something that's blocking them. There's something that's getting in their way. It's not because they're not deserving. It's not because they're not worthy and they're not ready. There's just something blocking them. But the trickiest thing about love is that the very thing that blocks us is the thing that we can't see. And I often use this analogy that it's a little bit like being inside a bottle and trying to read the label. You know, when it comes to our own love life, we can often get so confused and overwhelmed with emotions, and there's so much triggers and things going on that we actually question our choices and sometimes do things that we wish we didn't do, or wonder why, and we get really confused. So that's where I think that this particular Rumi quote is so relevant to what we're covering tonight, and that our task is not actually to seek love, it's to find out what it is that's preventing us from having it. So to merely seek and find the barriers within us that we might have built up against us. And what happens with so many women is they just actually don't realize what it is. And usually it's just one or two really simple things that we work with, that we shift with them. And so that's why this is so powerful, because we've distilled all of this down into the 6 most common blocks. So I know this is going to be really, really helpful.
Absolutely. And with this quote, I mean, we will both share about our journey in just a minute. But looking back, I thought it was just, there weren't any great men out there. I thought it was all men had the issues. I really didn't actually have the awareness at the time to look at myself and realize actually I did have a lot of blocks, and most of the ones that we covered tonight are definitely, I was exactly there myself. So, but we will share our story shortly. So we just wanted to share a little bit about who we are for those of you who haven't met us. And yeah, over to you again, Peter.
Yeah, for those who haven't seen any of my Facebook Lives, aren't part of my community or email list, and haven't come across me or my work before, then I'm obviously really excited to meet you. I guess the work that I do is very intuitive when it comes to love, and I specifically love working with people who have experienced a lot of pain around love, and that's kind of been my experience and my journey. So, and I will go into sharing a little bit more of that with you, but and I use the word intuitive because for some reason I'm actually pretty good at intuiting what's going on with other people, what their issues are or challenges are in love, relational dynamics and issues with love, dating, and everything in that space. I wasn't actually particularly good at figuring that out for myself until I embarked on this particular journey. But as a result, now I have a beautiful community called the Love Sanctuary, and a flagship program which I'm really proud of, which really gets results for clients, and that's called the Love Mindset Reinvention Program. And I really believe that we know that now, you know, for someone to be successful in financially successful, so to have a lot of money, often the difference between someone who's poor and someone who's really financially wealthy, we know now is mindset, with a lot of the research that's come out about, you know, successful people, entrepreneurs and business owners, and the Richard Branson types, and books like Think and Grow Rich. We know that mindset is really critical when it comes to financial success. And I now know and can demonstrate that mindset is really, really powerful when it comes to having success in love. And yet it's really underrated. We think we've got to be sexier and more feminine and more attractive and more this and more that, but a lot of it comes down to the mindset. So I'm really excited to share a bit more about specifically how we can shift our mindset tonight to have it programmed for success in love. And I use a lot of my background in psychology. I love using NLP or neuro-linguistic programming techniques because they get really instant change at a deep unconscious level, for those of you that have heard of NLP before, and we can talk a little bit about that later. And I also had a journey myself that it really led me to have to understand how to manage my own emotions, because I was super emotional and my love life for a really long time was an absolute hot mess. And it was a hot mess. It really was. I had so many tragic, painful breakups and emotional roller coaster relationships. And yeah, I'll share a little bit more about that. But it wasn't until I learned the tools and techniques to be able to manage my emotions effectively that it made a huge difference to my relationships as well. So I love empowering women with those tools as well, because there's nothing worse than, you know, feeling anxious and fearful and feeling, those feelings when we're dating, they're awful. They're awful.
Love it. And just for those of you who might wonder, you know, how I know actually we'll go into that, you know, why we actually decided to work together. We'll weave that into a little bit later. So for those of you who haven't met me, my business used to be called Ignite Mr. Right, and it is now, I've now rebranded to PrioritizeLove.com. I've been a love and success mentor for about 6 years now, and absolutely love it, absolutely passionate about it. I'm also a lemon tart lover, love my sweets, and a world traveller. I grew up in Switzerland, so if you're wondering where my accent is from, but I have lived in Australia for 20 years, over 20 years, so half of my life. And I use a blend of modalities. I do use NLP as well. However, my sort of speciality is more around embodiment and the female archetypes, so the key aspects of femininity in layman's term. So I will touch on that when we talk about one of the love blocks later on. I also use core energetics, which is a body mind modality, and I use a great tool called the Enneagram. And I truly believe that women are meant to have the cake and eat it too. I'm very passionate about helping women, successful, driven women, especially in attracting a great life partner. And I also specialize in helping women in their late 30s in how to attract a great partner so they can still have babies if that's what they choose to do. So that's sort of a bit of a niche within the dating and relationship coaching. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. So I would love for you to share a little bit more around, why you're so passionate about what you do and how you got into, I guess we both will be sharing our stories a little bit more before we really dive into the content in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, apart from being kind of the go-to person for most of my friends and extended group of friends, I would be sort of the person that they would ring and say, hey, what do you think about this situation, with this guy, or I'm having relationship problems. And I seem to be the go-to person for all of that. But again, ironically, my own love life was always up and down, up and down, up and down. I had some beautiful relationships in my 20s, and through no fault of my own, I guess, they ended. My first partner, I went through a really awful situation where he was just a chronic cheater, and I know probably many of you can relate on what that feels like to for someone to be unfaithful. And the next couple of relationships were great as well, but I had a partner who was a soccer player and he moved overseas to play soccer, and another partner who moved interstate also to play football. So by the time I got to my 30s, I was like, I really developed a sense of anxiousness about, what can I possibly do to keep a relationship? What's wrong with me? On a logical level, I knew that it wasn't my fault, but it almost seemed like I was blissfully in love. And just when I thought everything was going great, the rug was ripped out from underneath me. And so I had some really painful breakups. And I think what happens is when we don't heal some of those really painful breakups, it's a little bit like, and I liken this to if we had a broken arm. If we had a broken arm, we literally wouldn't just listen to our friends who would say, come on, you'll be right, get back on the horse, it'll be great, it'll be fine. We wouldn't just try and wait for time to heal our broken arm. We wouldn't, we'd end up carrying around. It just wouldn't heal properly. And I think often that's what happens with a broken heart. A lot of our broken hearts just don't heal properly. We don't actually give ourselves the proper healing and nurturing that we need to process what that all meant. We take such painful negative beliefs with us a lot of the time about what that breakup meant. And I see a lot of women that often what we need to do is go back and revisit some of those painful breakups and almost do a sort of a re-break and really understand what they meant. So I think that's critical to the work that I do and part of my journey as well. And then in my 30s, I kind of hid out in some relationships where I don't think I was really even into them that much, but I knew it's fine. I'm not going to get my heart broken in these ones, and wasted a lot of time probably in those relationships just because they felt a bit safe.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, the slide we're looking at, these are some of our success stories that we've had. So, even just looking at them now, it's just just so rewarding to see the women that we've helped who were just like you in sometimes at that point where they really were just about to give up on the whole love thing altogether. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Peter, with your story or with your, why you?
No, I mean, after a couple of really painful breakups late in my 30s, I sort of had to decide, like, am I going to just say there's no decent guys, this sucks, I'm really unlucky in love, it's not my fault, or am I actually going to take responsibility for the results that I'm getting? And that really hurt, because for a long time I kind of played the victim, like, oh, poor little me, you know, I've had such a bad run. I almost had people validate me for it as well, looking back, thinking about it. But I had to take ownership of that and really figure out why I was able to support so many other people in finding love and figuring out their own love life. I had to figure my own out, and it came with a lot of internal work and the support of someone else to help me see what it was that I couldn't see. A bit like when you go into David Jones and your whole life you've been looking into a mirror from front on, and you go into a David Jones change room and suddenly you can see the backside and all the other views around, and it's a little bit confronting, but that's kind of what it's like to work with someone who can show you things that you literally can't see. And along this journey as well, it's been really amazing to connect with you, Camille, because the approach that I use with women to really go deep and work on their internal blocks complements the work that you do as well. And together we've worked with so many beautiful women, and it's just been such a great journey so far, which is why we often co-facilitate workshops and webinars like this. And yeah, I'd love for you to share your journey as well.
Love it. I mean, there are similarities, but we also have very different journeys, which again, you know, makes things interesting because we have our own approaches. So I've now been with my husband Alex for 10 years. So I'm in my early 40s, actually mid 40s now. I'm 44. So I met him when I was 34, and in my 20s, I was very much happy to go with the flow and had a lot of short flings, and I was traveling a lot, and really that, you know, wasn't so, I was quite happy without that real solid relationship. But when I was turning about 30, 31, I was like, okay, I really want to attract a great life partner. I really want to be part of a team. I'm sick of being single and making all the decisions by myself. And it got more and more challenging. The more I wanted it, I felt like the harder it got. And my pattern was that I was very much attracted to emotionally unavailable men. So they would just not be interested in a committed relationship, which I'll go into it a little bit more in the love block number 1, because that sort of connects to that. But long story cut short, I ended up doing a lot of personal development, just like you, Peter. Invested a lot of time and money and you know, a lot of energy into it, because I just got to a point where I was like, okay, well, not having a relationship is not an option for me. So I did a lot of one-on-one coaching. I did, you know, therapy, group workshops. I traveled all the way to New York to do an amazing training around masculine, feminine energy archetypes. And the more I got into the personal development, the more I loved who I became through the process of it. I actually reconnected to who I really was. So the great thing about this kind of work is not only is it going to help you find a great life partner, but you will often tap into, you know, you will often end up being a different woman. So that was a really key thing that I loved. And then it led me to my passion, which is now doing this. You know, this is totally my passion, helping women just like you. So I guess that's it in a nutshell. But there were a lot of heartbreak, a lot of heartaches as well. My main pattern though was emotionally unavailable men. So I guess I just didn't even get close. It never even got close to that real deep, intimate, committed relationship until I you know, really done the inner work necessary. So let's jump let's move on. I'm aware of time because we have a lot of juicy content. So we've got about 40 minutes to go. I am Swiss, so that's the only Swiss thing in me. Sort of like I like to keep on time. Otherwise, I'm not typically Swiss at all. So over to you again.
All those images that you just saw on that last slide, by the way, are all beautiful, happy clients of ours. So they've got plenty of a chance to see it. And so you can see from there that we have worked with women from 20s all the way through to 70s. That it doesn't matter whether you're tall or short, thin or a larger girl, whether you're career orientated or whether you're family orientated. It doesn't really matter. Everyone deserves love, and it's usually just a couple of things that are getting in the way of that for most people. So yeah, love those happy smiling faces on that slide, actually.
Definitely. And the one in the middle here is Rebecca Mountain, her name is. They are now also expecting a baby, which is amazing. So very, very happy news.
Okay, so here's what we're going to teach you in the workshop today. We're going to cover the 6 most common love blocks, and these are the ones that we don't actually realise. So we call them the hidden blocks that the single women that we work with. There are more than this, but these are 6 key ones that we think will really be high impact value for you today, that could be standing in the way from you attracting and manifesting this beautiful relationship. So we're going to, through the process of going through these 6 key blocks, it's going to give you the opportunity to identify which ones apply to you, what your unique block or pattern is, and what the programming is behind that block that you would need to work on. Is it a belief that you hold that's not actually true that we need to work through? What's actually happening with that? And then we'll share with you some tips for each of those blocks about how you can release them. And I know I can certainly speak for myself and for most of the women that I work with, is I think this is really important, Camille, that it's not because we don't want to release them just so that we can settle. I know that a lot of the girls that I work with, there are guys that are interested in me, but they're not really they're not the quality guys, the guys that I'm really interested about. And so we do want to reiterate, this is not about, fast tracking you into a relationship or getting you just to, to settle for someone who's not your dream guy. I mean, I know that you haven't come this far. And to just settle for someone who's not ideal. So we really, really want to empower you to be at a level where you can attract in the guy that you really, really want. I know that's important.
Absolutely. It's about having an extraordinary relationship with a man that you're attracted to, a man that you respect, a man that you can trust, with that real deep intimacy that you're really longing for. Absolutely. Yeah, great point. So I'll get started with love block number 1. Don't you love that image? Love it. Men just don't commit. They just, they're just after sex. They're not into committed relationships. So this is one that I definitely was dealing with when I was really actively looking for my life partner. And here's the thing. So there are definitely some men out there who do have massive commitment issues. There are some men out there who actually don't want to settle down. They don't want a committed relationship. Absolutely. So you want to stay away from those guys. So as a bit of a tip or some important points about that one. Generally speaking, men who have some of it is common sense, but I'll just put it out there anyway. Generally speaking, men who've just come out of a long-term relationship are not going to be ready to commit again. Generally speaking, men who are in a big traumatic, dealing with a lot of turmoil, and they're not clear on their purpose or their life path, and their finances are in a really bad place. Generally speaking, they are not at the right stage where they are really willing to commit. to a life partner. So stay away from those guys. Stay away from the guys who need fixing or rescuing. You don't want a boy, you want a man. You want a man who's your equal. So putting that's number one. So in regards to what does a man actually need to feel in order for him to really want to commit? So as I mentioned before, I spend a lot of energy, or a lot of my content is around the feminine archetypes, so the key aspects of femininity. So in order for a man to want to commit and really for him to fall in love, he needs to fall in love really for him to want to commit. So for him to fall in love, he needs to feel certain things in your presence. So there are three aspects that are really, really important that I quickly want to share. So the first aspect is your sexual confidence. So he's going to be drawn to you initially because you are really comfortable in your own body. You've got that sexual confidence. You own your power as a woman, and you know who you are. You're proud to be a woman. You're not competing with him from that masculine competitive space. Which sort of that image, is a good example. Or she's got that real what have you got to offer, So that's one aspect. The second aspect is what I call the bitch archetype. So she's all about having really strong boundaries. She doesn't just jump into relationships. So she doesn't just jump into bed. She takes things slow, and she will test someone. So a man needs to know that you're not just going to give everything up for him. You're not just going to jump into bed. So this is all about taking things really slow initially. So for a man to fall in love, he often needs to spend time away from you and miss you in those early stages of a relationship in order for him to really that's when he's really preparing himself. For men, it's quite scary to actually fall in love, like it is for us as well. But for men, even more so, because it's such a big pool of emotions that they can, sometimes they feel like, oh God, this is a bit scary. Am I going to drown in this pool of femininity? So that's really important. Taking things slow, not to get intimate too soon. Keeping your boundaries strong, being really clear on what you're going to accept and not accept. And so men do, there is a book called Why Men Love Bitches. So men do like women who can sometimes challenge them as well. So that's the second aspect. The third aspect is all about vulnerability. So unless a man, and receptivity, your ability to receive. So unless a man feels that there is a softer side to you where he really feels like he can be there for you, he can feel important, he might really find you attractive, he might want to be your friend, he might want to have sex with you, but he might not fall in love with you. So that aspect needs to be there as well for him to really feel that stronger connection with you. So that is it in a nutshell. So with any of the content that we're sharing, if there are any questions at all, we can answer them at the end of the call or after the webinar as well. So I am aware of the time. So let's move on to the second one. So trust that all makes sense so far.
Just waiting for the slide to come up. I just actually wanted to quickly summarize what you said there, because I think it was really important, Camilla. The points that I took from that were men fall in love with the way that you make them feel, which often we think they fall in love with the way that we look or the way that we're acting or whatever. They fall in love with the way that you make them feel. The second point that I really loved about that is that men actually figure out how much they like someone when they're away from you, not when they're actually with you. So we get this confused. We think the more time we spend with a guy, the more they must be into us. But it's when they're apart, it's how much they miss us that's really the key to when they figure out how much they really, really like us. And the third point that I love about that, and I've heard so many of my guy friends say this, it's like the woman that they're going to marry is not the kind of woman that just jumps into bed easily.
Love the crisp, succinct summary there, Peter. Love it.
Yeah, it's almost like guys go, she's a fun time girl or she's marriage material, and it's really harsh, and it's a double standard, and it sucks, but it's just the reality that we're facing. So yeah, so thanks, Camille. I love those points.
Over to you.
Okay, so before I kick off with love block number 2, I wanted to share a story about a beautiful client of mine, Beck, and she only just recently, as in literally a couple of days ago, emailed me with this update about this beautiful guy. And she kind of came to working with me and came and found me because she kind of gotten to this point where she's like, I don't have any relationships that I can see that I would even want. Like my parents' relationship wasn't great. I don't have any other family members or friends who have a really rocking marriage that I would really want. She's like, I kind of had this vision for this amazing relationship and how I want it, but is it even possible? Like, is there even a guy who's going to want this kind of relationship? And so you'll see that she uses words in this, in her message to me about, I found a conscious partner and we're expanding, connecting. She's really quite, into her self-development and that sort of thing now. And she lives in a really small country town. So she also had these kind of limiting thoughts about, how am I even going to find him in this population, this guy who actually dreams for this vision of this relationship that's so much more than anything else that she's even seen. And so that actually brings me to love block 2. For some reason, I can't control it on my end, Camille. I'm not sure why, but
Good.
And that is that a lot of us somehow on some level don't believe that this phenomenal partnership even exists. And I think that is often the case because there's not that many great relationships around. And one of the main reasons for that, and I think we're really blessed, but we're also really challenged by the fact that we live really in kind of this transitional generation. If we think only a couple of generations ago, women were coming out of the kitchen and finding jobs to fill while the men were off at war. It was only our mother's generation, we think about baby boomers, they were then empowered to go out and get an education, and the whole husband-wife marriage, male-female dynamic has actually changed and transitioned quite quickly. Now it's actually really uncommon to have a single breadwinner and a stay-at-home mum. It's probably, would you say, Camille, it's actually probably not really not less common than less
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there are more and more stay-at-home dads now. It's totally changed.
Yeah, and yet we don't have really good functioning models for how these new types of relationships work. And so I'm a huge champion for us forging a path to create a new paradigm of a relationship, envisaging a type of relationship that doesn't have to look like anything we've ever seen before. And it involves actually dreaming big and really getting clear on what our values are, what type of relationship dynamic we want, how we actually see that relationship working. I now have clients that have really been able to think outside the square. Some of them are actually living and working together and traveling all around the world. Some of them actually have this great arrangement where they live 1 week at his place and 1 week at her place. And some of these seem really unconventional, but they're absolutely perfect and amazing for these couples. And there are men out there that are totally on board with wanting to create a new type of relationship, but we almost have to pitch it to them.
So true.
They're also not sitting at home thinking, oh, how can I create a whole new different type of partnership, a conscious partnership where we're both growing and evolving and experiencing everything that we want to experience out of life. So that's one of the biggest blocks, I think, that sometimes when we have all these other challenges in love, at the end of the day, we look at like a traditional marriage, and for a lot of us, it's like, it's not even that great anyway. from what we see happening in the past. So really, really have a think about, are you actually struggling to think about how amazing a relationship and your particular type of family might look? Please remember that there are men that are totally feeling disillusioned with that old model of a relationship as well, and would love to meet someone who has given a lot of conscious thought to how this new type of relationship might work. They really are. I talk to them about it. They're really up for it.
Love that, Peter. One big takeaway that I just got from what you've shared is, talking to the ladies who are listening now, like, are you maybe chasing an idea of a relationship that is not necessarily based on your values? So is it really also about really taking the time to redefine of, well, what would actually make me happy? And maybe it's not, it's going to look different to what I thought. Maybe the guy is actually a different, who I thought I wanted might not actually make me happy. And I have that conversation with a lot of my clients too. Sometimes it's letting go of our preconceived ideas of how it should look like, and what others will think, and all of those things. So really important point too.
Yeah, I know if I took on all the expectations and the social conditioning that I had growing up in a small country town in Victoria, I wouldn't have left that small country town. I'd be a mum of teenage, probably older than that, children, and probably divorced by now.
Oh, definitely. You would have, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off there. Awesome. So let's move on to love block number 3. So this is a big one. So it's putting love on the back burner. So a lot of my clients, or my past clients, or my success stories, when they first had the initial conversation with me, there's often a theme of, maybe it's not the right time, I just want to lose another 5 kilograms, or I just want to buy another property, or I just want to make some more money, or I just want to do some more traveling, or I just want to feel better about a certain thing, or it's always about, it's not now, but maybe, this is not the time to focus on, to make a relationship a priority. So and again, this is most relevant, of course, for those of you who are wanting to have a family, because there is that biological clock ticking. So a lot of my clients end up coming to me when they're 39 or 40, and they have nearly missed out on that opportunity to have a family. So it's so important. It's so important to make it a priority, not just for having family, but it is really, for me personally, it's always, the time is always now. And why would you want to put something like love off, where you really could have it, in the very near future? And the reason why we tend to put it off is, I guess, it's that real, it can be a, how we both shared, it can be, it's a vulnerable, it's about tapping into our emotions. Sometimes emotions will come up when we really reconnect what's really, really important to us. So I'm encouraging you, if you have been coming up with your own excuses about, well, yeah, really, I do want that relationship one day, but first I need to lose that weight, or I need to, for those of you also who have children who are maybe divorced, I need to bring them up, I need to spend more time with them first before I can meet someone else. So putting other people's needs first, or I need to look after my friends really need me anyway. So this is a really important point, just to make your relationship goal a priority, knowing that there's always, you can always distract yourself from what's really, truly important. And I guess being really courageous to reconnect to your relationship goal emotionally. So I'll keep this one pretty brief because I want to make sure we'll get through everything moving forward. But yeah, a really, really important point there.
Okay, so before I introduce block number 4, I just want to share a little bit about Michelle's story, and I think that a lot of you will be able to relate to this. She used to fall in, like, deeply in love, and she'd say, oh, we had this most amazing, you know, connection on an emotional, mental, spiritual level. Completely ignore all of the red flags about why this relationship was going to kind of be amazing but self-destruct within that dreaded 12-week time frame. And she had it happen time and time and time again, and didn't really realize that it was something that she was happening within her. There was some kind of deep thing that was forcing her to be really attracted to these guys who she'd have this amazing chemistry with, but not really seeing that there was any long-term relationship potential. And for those of you that had an opportunity to take the attachment style questionnaire, where this pattern shows itself most often is when we have someone who has an anxious attachment style, so has a deep core desire to have really true intimacy with someone, to be very close and to have a really sort of open, raw and deep soul connection with someone. And we have this sense of anxiety as well, and fear about losing that connection with someone. But what often happens if you are the anxious attachment style person is you tend to be extremely powerfully drawn to the extreme of that, which is someone who has an avoidant attachment style. And an avoidant attachment style person actually has a deep fear of having a really powerful connection with someone. There's an interest in it. There's some kind of, they're actually also really attracted to someone who wants to form a deep, powerful connection with them. But they're also quite scared of the emotional responsibility and the burden. So often when you have those kinds of connections, an anxious, insecure, and an avoidant attachment style come together, there's very much a push-pull, push-pull, pull back, lean in. There's lots of emotions. There's a big roller coaster. You know, he pulls back as soon as she's really emotional, and, you know, and then she calms down, and then he comes back in again. And there's lots of emotions involved. And what that is triggering deep within us. Those attachment patterns are triggering deep within us wounding that we actually have, which often dates right back to childhood. So attachment theory actually comes from research about infants and infants' attachment to their parental figure. And most of the women that I work with that do have this anxious attachment pattern often have had relationship with their father that wasn't as good as what they would have liked. So they grew up really wishing that they had have had a closer connection with their dad often. And this is pretty common for dads of that baby boomer era as well. They weren't raised with the skills to be able to show their children, particularly their daughters, you know, emotional support and caring and nurturing. And if you did, you were really lucky, because it's a lot less common. They were often raised in environments where it was a bit tough love, you know, just get out there and, you know, toughen up. And so they didn't really experience the kind of parental techniques that we would have liked to make us feel accepted and loved and safe and cherished and supported by our fathers. And so this is where this pattern of, again, as you've mentioned as well, falling for this type of guy who almost mirrors the relationship that we had with our dad. If only this guy, you know, loves me, like pick me, choose me. If only he loves me, it will mean I'm worthy. It will mean I'm worthy of love. And another symptom of this is what I call the double bind. And so we also have this pattern with our attachment style of guys either falling into one or two categories. Either we're really into the guy and he's not into us back, or the guys that are into us, we're just not into. And so we sit in the middle and we're like, oh my God, like, why does every guy that's really keen on me, I'm just not into him? And then if I'm really into someone, it's usually that draw, that pull to that person who's a bit avoidant. And unfortunately, by the time you reach, your 30s and beyond, there are a lot of those men in the dating pool. There is a higher percentage of them in the dating pool. Really, they should only represent about 25% of the population, but they stay single for a lot longer and there's more of them. So that's why we do need to be mindful. How do we cure this double bind situation? How do we open that gap up and find that person in the middle that we can have a healthy relationship with, that's really into us and we're really into them back? That's actually looking at our deep programming and our attachment patterns and our relationship to our parents or our parental figure. It's not always dad, it's sometimes mum for some people. And also, if we don't have a really, really high self-esteem and a high opinion of ourselves and someone's really into us, on an unconscious level, we're actually thinking there's got to be something wrong with them. If he's really into
we don't
me,
trust it.
Yeah. So that's the double bind, and it's really common. I hear a lot of women say, God, if only I could find this reciprocal thing. Well, it's actually an issue that we have going on ourselves, that we either categorize men one or the other.
Absolutely. And I'm aware of time. We do need to move forward quickly, but just a quick one with that one is, once I actually met Alex, who was really genuinely interested in me and he wanted to be with me, and I was so not used to it, I actually did think there was something wrong with him. So it was like I needed to do some more work to actually accept that true, real love from a really, amazing man who actually genuinely wanted to be with me. So interesting.
Hear stories like that all the time. We obviously don't have time to share them, but it's a pattern.
It's good for you ladies to know that sometimes, we think about when we finally meet the right person, that it's going to be all just amazing, but it depends on how many blocks you have. Sometimes it will feel really unusual because you're so used to being drawn to that bad boy or the unavailable man. So definitely good to keep that in mind. So love block number 1 is what I call the inner conflict around love and success. So as Peter mentioned, a lot of us grew up with the traditional, our mums were, or our dads were not around that much, and our mums were mainly at home. So we often, or I'll share my story around that. So when I grew up, my dad traveled a lot. His life seemed really interesting, and my mum was very much at home. Even though she loved being a mum, I felt like I perceived her as being quite trapped and not actualized. She didn't really follow her passion to the extent that I followed my passion. So I grew up with a bit of a conflict around success, freedom and success, and love. So it was nearly like I felt like I had to choose between having this exciting life full of freedom and travel and success, or I could choose to have a great relationship, which would mean, maybe things would be quite boring and I couldn't sort of do all these great things. And this is totally subconscious and it's not rational, because now, of course, we do have so many choices as women. But what I'd like to encourage you is to explore whether you have a limiting belief around what's really possible for you when it comes to love and success. So you might have a thriving business at the moment. A lot of my clients are very successful with their careers and businesses, and most of them have big issues or big limiting beliefs around, well, maybe I can't have it all. I'm really lucky that this area is going so well. I'm just not meant to have this love thing. It's just not meant for me. So I really want to encourage you to explore whether you have some of those inner conflicts around love and success, and even with relationships. do you believe that once you have a relationship, you would have to compromise, so that, you know, your man wouldn't actually encourage you to still pursue your passion, which is, again, so wrong. And a lot of men love strong, independent women who do their own thing. And, you know, my husband Alex and I, we often spend weekends apart. Well, not all the time, but, you know, maybe once a month, once every 5 or 6 weeks, where he will go down the coast and I will attend personal development workshops or run workshops, and we're totally happy with that. So you create the kind of relationship that you want. So yeah, this is a great one to explore. And of course, you can have the cake and eat it too, as long as you are willing to dissolve those nasty inner love blocks. Over to you.
Yeah,
we've got another 9 minutes just to keep
awesome.
Keep things awesome.
This is a pretty quick one as well, but I wanted to introduce the last love block, number 6, with Lisa's story. She literally, you can see, only just a few days ago, posted in the Facebook group that she
love that.
is super excited. Now, Lisa is again a beautiful, very intelligent woman, extremely self-aware. You know, we would have very high-level conversations about, I guess, the psychological processes. She was very, very cognitive into, you know, thinking about, so what's the dynamic here? What's happening for me? Why can't I this? Why can't I that? But the most simple, fundamental thing that she couldn't understand was that love is not conditional. And I'll explain what I mean by that. And she's happy for me to share her personal story, in that she kept thinking, oh, but I'm so much more attractive to men when I'm 5 kilos thinner. And she also had a mum who was a complete super mum, who was a yoga teacher and, you know, an amazing cook, and, you know, was on school committees, and like literally a super mum. And she always felt like a bit of a failure compared to her mum. And would I be worthy of a loving, committed relationship if I wasn't this superwoman, and I wasn't thin, and I wasn't all of this? And it wasn't until through a couple of sessions and using some NLP that she actually really got the sense of, yeah, well, okay, would I, you know, this was the question that I posed to her. Would you actually really want to be with a man who, if for some reason 10 years down the track you were 5 kilos heavier, turned around and said, okay, well, I don't love you anymore? Like it's all well and good because we feel more confident when we're feeling happy with the way that our body is. But honestly, again, it comes down to everyone deserves love. And a man, they have their own insecurities as well. They're not falling in love with us because we're a certain way. And as much as we have ourselves convinced that our physical attractiveness, or I know my personal experience of this one, and I have a lot of clients as well, is I often led a little bit with my success. You know, I'd talk about what corporate career I had, and then obviously that would, you know, they would be able to deduce that I, you know, earn a decent salary, and where I lived, and, you know, things that I did or things that I owned and what car I drove. And it was so superficial. But that's when I showed up and presented like that, because I was conditioned to think that all of my worth, society conditions us to think that all of our worth is tied into all of these external things and not into just the essence of who we are. And when I presented all of those things that I thought would be impressive to a man, for sure, I attracted men, but it wasn't a real soul level, genuine love. It was someone that was attracted to those things. And a lot of, this is the case for a lot of women. We think that our worth is to do with the way that we look, how successful we are in our career, what we have, where we live, car we drive, all these, you know, how great our hair is looking, all that sort of thing. They're external to what a man really falls in love with, which is the essence of who we are. And that's where it's so important to distinguish. If you've been leading with all that stuff that's not genuinely who you are, if you're not able to be vulnerable and show who you are, then the kind of connection that you're going to have with the guy is not actually going to penetrate to the level that you really want. If he can't love you for who you are, then...
And it won't be fulfilling, it won't be long lasting or fulfilling either.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm moving to I've moved to the next slide. Was there anything else you wanted to cover? We've got another 5 minutes. So
yeah,
but yeah,
let's get through.
Super important. This last point, I think that's a really, really juicy one, all about authenticity. Totally. So just quickly recapping, biggest blocks: the belief that men don't commit, great relationships just don't exist, putting love on the back burner, the double bind, the inner conflict, and love is conditional.
I had to throw this little truth bomb in here, because what I love about what we've done today is we've actually brought some awareness for the beautiful girls that are watching about potentially what some of the things are that they have. For those of you that have got a pen and paper, what I'd love you to do is just write down this sentence: men are. We'll write down the words men are, and after this workshop, what I'd love you to do is finish that sentence. Men are. What comes up for you? Men are frustrating. Men are. Is there stuff that's coming up? And also write down relationships are, and see what your beliefs are and what's coming up for you, because the first step is having awareness of what your blocks are, or the things that you're believing that might not be true, that are stopping you from being open and receiving love. But most importantly is you've got to then do the work to clear them, or they'll continue to sabotage your love life, because a lot of these beliefs, and a belief is just something that we've told ourselves over and over and convinced ourselves that it's true. And they're often getting in the way of having a healthy, beautiful, deeply connected relationship that lasts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the reason why we can often be like so in control of so many areas of our life, and yet our love life can be a bit of a hot mess, or we just can't figure it out, or use the same strategies and approaches, being deliberate about it as what we would in other areas of our life, in our career and family and achieving success, is because most of what drives our romantic behaviors, our feelings and our decisions around love does sit in that lower part that's meant to be an iceberg. It looks a little bit like an ice cream cone, but you can see an iceberg, and you know with an iceberg that a 10% of it sits at the top, and about 90% of it sits under the water, and that kind of represents the aspects of our thought and our thinking that we're aware of, and what goes on in our unconscious mind that we're unaware of. And most of our relationship stuff, it goes on in the unconscious. So that's where the reprogramming and the repatterning needs to happen, to clear out a lot of these blocks, particularly the stuff that comes up about childhood, parental relationships, past pain in relationships. All that sort of thing is often buried down in our unconscious.
And it just really tends to get triggered when we really like someone, when we really fall in love, like, in all our stuff. Like there's a quote that one of my friends shares sometimes, like, love will bring up anything other than love itself, something like that. But yeah, it's very much what you're saying here. That's when all our shadow, all our stuff comes up, when we actually fall in love.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people kind of just pull themselves out of the dating game, because it's like they get triggered with so much stuff. It just feels a bit hard. It just feels hard. It feels really hard.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to share as well that what we've talked about tonight is not actually just a theory. Uncovering your blocks and clearing them, and clearing out all that unconscious gunk, almost like detoxing, and we have used that detox process before, is exactly what we do to get our clients results. All the beautiful images that we've showed, and the clients that we've worked with individually and together to give them that soul level love, and they're not just settling, they're actually blissfully in relationships that have well exceeded their expectations, which just warms my heart so much. It's super amazing. And I love the fact that we've, with our experience, have developed a proven system, and it's tweaked a little bit for each individual because your personal circumstances and life experiences and for, you know, upbringing have been a little bit different. But the process that we go through to work through all of that is now proven to work, which is just awesome, and it literally works for anybody.
And just to add to that, I think the amazing mix that we have, and you know, all of you would have picked up on that Peter is very much, or you are very much, sometimes hard, who am I talking to now? I can only see you. So you are very much, you're such an expert with the mindset and the limiting beliefs, where I tap more into the feminine archetypes and the embodiment about who you need to be in order to attract that life partner, and then how to navigate through those early stages of relationships. So our processes together, or our approaches together, are so powerful because we're really tackling the same thing from slightly different angles, and then the combined attention is just so much more powerful.
It's almost like the life cycle of the work, that the journey that someone goes through to prepare themselves for love, clearing the inner gunk and the barriers, and then actually being the person that they need to be an energetic match for that beautiful relationship that they've now been able to co-create, which is amazing.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, I just want to encourage you to take a moment to really connect to, why is this actually important to you? Why is love so important? What is love really all about? So I'll encourage you to just close your eyes for the next half a minute or even less. Just close your eyes. Maybe you want to put your hand on your heart or anywhere on your body where it feels right. And just allow yourself to connect to, what would an amazing, loving, committed relationship really give you? How would you feel if by the end of the year you could celebrate Christmas or New Year's Eve with a man who's totally committed to you, you feeling safe, you feeling loved, feeling inspired, feeling part of a team? What would that really mean to you to have that relationship? Just really allow to connect to that. Really feel it in your body. Why is it a must for you to have it? Why is it not an option for you to give up? What is your driver? Just really allow yourself to tap into that vision. Perfect. So just open your eyes again and have a bit of a stretch.
Okay, but awesome vision. But the reality right now with so many women, and I'm guessing for many of the girls that we've got that have joined us tonight, is that you are sick and tired of swiping and clicking, and just energetically, it can be really draining, and not finding anyone quality. It is a lot of effort involved in Tinder and online dating and getting your hopes up and feeling disappointed. And I know there's a lot of girls that are really tired with that. A lot of you are over being that lone single person that turns up by themselves at events and family gatherings. You don't want to feel like there's something wrong with you anymore. Like sometimes it just feels like, oh, maybe it's not going to happen for me if I haven't found it yet. we often feel like life is ticking you by and you don't want to wait any longer for an amazing guy, and especially to have someone to go and do all those bucket list things. I know that I speak to a lot of women, they're like, well, I want to go and I want to climb this mountain and I want to do that and I want to go here, and they're like, but I'm just waiting until I'm in that relationship because I'd planned on doing that with my husband. A lot of you are craving that intimate connection. And when I did that vision with you, Camille, and I always see, you know, that waking up in the morning and opening your eyes and having that beautiful, loving smile back at you in the morning. It just, so that to me just epitomizes intimacy. And, you know, this is what we deserve. We're social creatures, and we're, you know, we're supposed to be in relationship. I know that you don't, oh, go back. Back. I know that you don't want to go through, a lot of you don't want to go through the pain of another breakup or a toxic relationship, and that a lot of you have taken yourselves even probably out of the game for a while because it's just, it's just painful. You don't want to, and often it can just shake up your whole life. It can affect your career and your mental health, and a lot of you don't want to go through that ever again. And I guess most importantly, you don't want to waste any more years just kind of sitting back, waiting, wishing and hoping that someday this amazing guy is just going to throw himself on the bonnet of your car and go, hey, it's me, you're everything I've been looking for. Because that's literally how a lot of us are living our lives these days. We're just going about our business and just thinking, oh, I hope it happens one day. You know, this amazing guy just turns up. But we know that's not going to happen.
So nothing changes unless you do. That's the naked truth. And another quote I love is by Wayne Dyer: you don't attract what you want, but you attract who you are, what you are, which again is all our beliefs, our energy, how we turn up. We don't actually get what we want. We get who we are.
And it's interesting because I see some people in relationship and they're a great match for each other, but they're not happy. Neither of them are happy. Energetically, they're vibrating at a very low, and they've probably been together for a really long point in time. So they're an energetic match. But we all know that we don't want one of those relationships. We don't want to meet someone who's also not vibrating particularly high. We want to have, you know, feel really phenomenal about ourselves and meet someone who comes in at that level as well.
Absolutely. So we are nearly at the end, and my apologies, we've run slightly over. So what's next? What is the next step? So we both believe that this is your time for deep intimacy, for love. This is the time. Why would you want to not make it a priority? But I guess the real question is, are you ready? Are you ready to make the change? So if our message and content really resonated with you tonight, and having an amazing relationship is a real priority for you, we are offering a 45-minute love breakthrough session with one of us. So in the session, what will happen is we'll get you really clear on how specifically you're in your way right now, in your own way right now, how to turn that around. So we'll really dive deeper into your story, into your limiting beliefs, into the missing archetypes that might be really in your own way. And then if we feel like we could really help you, and if our program would be a match for you, we would also let you know what options there are. We've got an amazing offer for you for the next 7 days. That includes working with both of us at a really reasonable investment. So all you need to do is actually, I'll get you to share the booking link if you can access the chat box. I'm not sure if you can
keep
see
going,
that.
Camilla, and I'll post
Awesome.
that in the chat box now.
So we've got a booking link for you to book in. So we've cleared our calendars for the next 5 or 6 days. So all you need to do is click a time that works for you, fill in the questions, and then we will check who is, who might be a better match for you with having that initial conversation. But really, either of us. It really doesn't matter who you talk to, because we'll see what the best match for you is moving forward in regards to our individual programs, because some of you might have already had a few coaching sessions with one of us, but the adjoined offer is absolutely amazing. We're really proud of it. We're really passionate about it. So, but yeah, we are super passionate about helping women just like you, because we do believe that you're way too precious for you to miss out on love, romance, and passion. And again, looking at all those beautiful, happy women, it's just the quality of our relationship, the quality of our life is really directly determined by the quality of our relationships. So this is really, it's such an important aspect, and I think we've made that really clear tonight. So we're on a mission to help as many women as possible in having that relationship as well. Is there anything else that you want to do? And of course, it is possible for you, even though you may have had so many disappointments. And a lot of our clients, they did have resistance initially about investing in coaching. It is common that it's something, it's like, oh God, this is gonna maybe stir things up. So we have worked with many women who really didn't think anything was going to change, and it's so rewarding for us to see the transformation.
I was going to mention as well, Camille, which I forgot, the Harvard study, which for those of you who are familiar with it, they did a longitudinal study. So the same participants over the course of their whole life, from university through to end of life. And the number one most significant defining factor which came up for people to describe whether they were happy with their quality of life at end of life or not was correlated with the quality of their significant relationships. So even though we are going through these awkward transitional times, and we're still redefining new models of relationships and co-creating different types of relationships, we know that human connection and being in relationship is the single most important thing in our life that will determine at the end of life whether we've had a happy and fulfilled life. So even though we like to think, being single is great and I've got this all sorted and I've got all of these other things going on, we know how important love is and how special it is and how it helps us to just grow and evolve beyond. And that's why we really, really, really want to help you with it. We really want you to experience this too. All those other beautiful women came to us. Pretty much the first thing we had to do was to help reconvince them again that there was hope, I think, sometimes.
Absolutely.
So if you feel like, oh, I don't know, it's just not going to be for me, please know that all the other women that we work with feel the same way as well. They're like, oh, I don't even know if it's even going to happen for me. But what we are going to do is help you, like the three-sided mirror, help you to see what it is that you can do to help yourself to get to this beautiful, loving relationship that you deserve.
Absolutely. So I would like to thank all of you for having made the time, and you were all there until the end, like you're all still here. So which really means that this is a priority for you. You have made it a priority. We talk to a lot of women who really want a relationship, but they're not willing to really take action towards it. So the fact that you're still here means a lot. So I want to acknowledge you for being here, for spending the time with us. And we both look forward to having a chat within the next 5 or 6 days. Any questions at all, feel free to email us as well, or reply to the email that was sent out earlier on today or last night. And have an amazing evening. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Peter? A last final quote?
I'm looking forward to connecting with the girls and having a chat about what's going on for them, and sharing what it is that we do and seeing if it's a fit for them as well.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you so much again. Have a great evening, everyone, and we'll chat soon. Look forward to it.
Thank you. Bye.
And your time is now. Lots of love. Bye.